All right, gang, we are just about 4 weeks out from the midterms. The polls are tightening, as you know, and we're beginning to see what the new Congress is going to look like. And no one could give us a better bird's eye view than my guest today. And I know many of you know him. If you haven't already done so, you got to click on the links below. Definitely subscribe to his YouTube channel, Red Eagle Politics, and all the various social media platforms we have down for you. He's going to give us his insights on what to expect just days from now. So we have him here. Red Eagle, man, great to have you back with us. It's been too long.
Yes, it has. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome. Absolutely. I've been wanting to chat with you for some time now. Watch your stuff regularly. Love your analysis. If you don't mind, let's just start with some of the bigger trends that we're seeing and then, work our way down to some of the individual states and races. For you and your analysis, what are the key meta indicators going into midterms? What should we be looking for in terms of setting our expectations? So I'm looking at things like the generic ballot. Are you going to vote for the Republican or the Democrat? Presidential approval, right track, wrong track, political identification, the Gallup polling. We can get into each one of these individually, but I'm just curious for you as an analyst, if you take any of these indicators as having priority over the others, or do you take them as a set with each one having their own importance?
Well, I think you got to take them as a set. I think you can say that some of them have more bearing on what's going on than the others, because, when you have a right track, wrong track poll, for example, you may have 70% of the public that says that the country's on the wrong track, but for some reason, a good portion of those individuals happen to approve of Biden for some reason. Personally, I don't know why, but the fact that Biden's approval rating is underwater significantly, the fact that Republicans are winning the generic ballot now, they're winning, and as you aforementioned, the Gallup Party ID Index, which is very historically accurate. They're doing very well on a wide variety of fronts, and the fact that a lot of the undecided voters in the generic ballot tend to disapprove of Joe Biden. It's looking good for Republicans, but like I said, it's kind of a mix of things. Some may be more accurate than others, but either way, you got to take everything and analyze it to get the full picture.
Get the full picture. Yeah. What about that Gallup Party ID poll? That was the one, if I recall, had that big shift in 2021. I think it's like a 14-point swing to Republicans. It was pretty impressive. What's the significance of that poll as an indicator, and how are the Republicans doing on that one?
Well, that poll has been historically very accurate at predicting the national environment for the generic House vote. 2020, it was on point. 2018, it was on point. 2016, I believe it was on point. If anything, it underestimated Republicans. And then 2014, it was on point. So that's just taking the October poll at face value. We just got the September results. It's very possible Republicans could be doing even better in the October poll when it comes in, but it's looking very, very good for Republicans because that has been the historic indicator, party ID with leaners, which, pushes independents to one side or the other, and they have a 48-44 lead. So that would mean R+4 right now. If the election was today, that would mean that they're going to take back the House. They're taking back the Senate. They're winning some governorships. And it's very possible that at the end of the day, it could be a wider margin than that.
Right. Absolutely. So that's it's kind of like a generic ballot in a way, but instead you're voting for yourself. And I identify as a Republican, or I identify as Democrat or independent. What are the generic ballots? They seem to be all over the place depending on the polling company. But what are you seeing in terms of the generic ballots right now?
Well, it's looking up for Republicans. They actually were down in the generic ballot average a couple weeks ago, but a lot of those polls were registered voter polls. They don't poll who's actually likely to turn out. They just poll registered voters. And we know that those polls tend not to be as accurate as likely voter polls. A lot more of these polls have added likely voter screens, and you see them going from, in some cases, like D+4 to R+2, for example. And they're winning every single poll in RCP that is a likely voter poll that has a sample size above 600. And that's a very, very positive thing right now, especially because there are still 10% undecideds, and a lot of the undecideds don't approve of Joe Biden.
And that's where the presidential approval comes in, right? That's where,
yes,
and that same with Gallup as well. Gallup seems to be created an average, or discovered an average there. If the president is underwater, under 50% for midterms, his party tends to see losses of around like 30 seats or something like that. Is that accurate for a historical indicator there?
Yeah, I'd say probably on average, it's about a 30-seat loss, although in recent history, we've seen, especially in the first term, we've seen wider losses. Yeah. The only reason why we really didn't see one under the Bush administration was because of 9/11 and his like 90% approval rating. And even so, it wasn't like Republicans gained a ridiculous amount of seats. But the second midterm he had was brutal. But it seems like 1994, 2010, 2018, those first midterm years tend to be more brutal than the second. And it's very possible Republicans could be poised for a big year.
Yeah. I understand. That's I forget who it was who theorized. That's why after the J6 hearings, Democrats keep trying to compare J6 to 9/11 so as to try to thwart, the curse of the midterm and try to revamp a 2002 outcome where the president's party actually gained seats, which is very rare. All right, let's talk some races here. So obviously the big story is the October surprise for Herschel Walker in Georgia, which on the outset is just so sad. I mean, how low these people go is just beyond me, and the way they exploit families and all that. But regardless, what do you see going on in Georgia? Do you think that October surprise is going to affect Walker?
Personally, I don't believe it's going to affect him any more than the initial domestic abuse allegation scandal has affected him. I mean, the people that aren't going to vote for Herschel Walker because of that are already, going to believe that he's been a domestic abuser or whatever, because these allegations have been thrown his way for quite some time. So I'd say it probably wouldn't affect him too much. I think it is going to be a very, one of the closest races this midterm. But I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of independent voters, they view Herschel Walker as the Heisman Trophy winner, the football star, going up against somebody who votes with Joe Biden 100% of the time. And I believe that at the end of the day, Walker's probably going to win by maybe a couple of points or so, give or take.
Is he going to get some Brian Kemp coattails? Because Kemp looks like he's really widening his lead over Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Brian Kemp, despite his flaws, he's going up against Stacey Abrams, and that's, she's running a campaign that makes her 2018 campaign look pristine in comparison. And, Kemp is somebody who, I'm a little iffy on him as a governor, but as in terms of his electoral prospects for this fall, he's looking, to be in pretty good shape. And if he wins by 7 points, as a lot of people are anticipating, I really can't see Raphael Warnock, really pulling across the finish line.
Right. Those are going to be way too many Republican votes in the end. Yeah, I see it too. So there's Georgia, and that would be a pickup were that to happen. Arizona, let's look at that. Talk about a state that is going through well, you and I would say it in our Orthodox tradition, a transfiguration, Carrie Lake, Blake Masters, Mark Fincham. What's going on in Arizona? It's like MAGA country over there. I thought it was McCain country, and now it's becoming and then it turned blue, and now it's going back to hard red. What's going on?
Yeah, and this is kind of a similar thing that you could even say happened to a lesser extent in Florida, where it was Bush country. Jeb Bush was their governor. Rubio was their senator. It was said you had to be like a neocon or a moderate to win in Florida. And then DeSantis comes along, wins in a blue wave year. And then, Rubio's changing his rhetoric a little bit, and the state's culture is really changing. And I think that Arizona is a state that has always kind of been up for grabs. You saw, America First members of Congress there. You have Andy Biggs, Paul Gosar, to name a few. And it really seems as if this fall they are poised to elect a slate at the statewide level. And I think Masters is going to pull it off as well. America First candidates. Kerry Lake is up in pretty much every poll. Mark Fincham is doing very well, and he's been, a real hardliner there. He's a fighter. He's doing very well in the polls against Adrian Fontes. And you look at Abe Hamadeh, who's running for AG. He's, winning in the polls by quite a bit from what we've seen as well. But you've got a great slate of candidates up there. And even though a lot of people are saying Masters is like trailing right now, he's doing far better in the polls at this point than McSally was in 2020. And it looks like he's on track to pull it off, especially as he's getting a lot of funding. And Kelly, as an incumbent, is far below 50. He's averaging 47. That's not really that good for an incumbent.
Right. And and what is it? I think it was Steve Bannon who was talking about what's their other senator's name? The peroxide girl. I'm forgetting.
Kristen Sinema. Yeah.
Thank you, Kristen Sinema. Having my senior moment here. But he thinks he's arguing she's gonna flip. That'll be interesting. She'd be much more of a Romneyite Republican, but he thinks she'll flip because she likes the power too much, and she's getting beaten up by Democrats. We'll have to see. That'll be some icing on the cake. We always like flips, at least it's good. It's good on paper. We'll see how it works in the votes.
Hopefully if she does, she'll lose her primary to somebody much better, but we'll have to see about that. I mean, she's definitely plays the optics game a lot more than her actual record, but
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm sure she's worried about her Democrat primary as well, so it'll be interesting if she becomes a Lindsey Graham kind of thing, just moving back and forth, or an Arlen Specter who ran from Republicans to Democrats, or Charlie Crist or whoever. We'll see. Let's go up a little north here. Nevada, again, another state. Even in many ways, it seems it's even more dramatic because if I recall, they voted blue 5 of the last 7 presidential elections. Harry Reid, I thought, turned that thing into a, unassailable Democratic machine. And again, I've been learning from your videos, Nevada is going through its own amazing red wave. What's going on there?
Yeah, so basically what's happening in Nevada, you see that there is that the Democrat apparatus got completely wiped out in early 2021. And it's basically the old Reid machine has been replaced with a lot of these unhinged members of the Democrat Socialists of America. And it really seems as if that kind of is really going to accelerate this change that was already happening. You saw Trump did better, far better in Nevada than Romney did in 2016 and 2020, despite the change in the national environment, despite the massive VBM system. He came even closer in 2020. And you see trends among white working class voters and Hispanics, which are two of the largest groups in Clark County, moving a little bit to the right. That's really been enough to change the state and the way it votes. And I think we're going to see that continue. You have Adam Laxalt running for Senate. He's doing a great job. You have Joe Lombardo, who's the former sheriff of Clark County, and he looks to be poised to defeat lockdown Sisolak as of right now. It'd be another flip. And you could see that state start to transform into from a lean to likely blue state to a lean to likely red state by the end of the decade.
Yeah, which seems to match its, demographics and its complexion a lot more. Definitely Latinos moving to the right has got to be, and working class has got to be just this potential tsunami here, a potential tectonic shift in the political order. Pennsylvania, my friend, that's my backyard here. We've been working closely with Mastriano. I haven't met Dr. Oz yet, but what are you seeing in the Keystone State?
Well, in terms of the governor's race there, it seems like if the polls were as wrong as they were in the primary in terms of missing Western Pennsylvania, it's very possible that Mastriano pulls off a victory despite, being underfunded 20-1. You have a lot of the rhinos in the establishment, people like Doug Ducey that are abandoning him, but he's out there, he's working hard, and hopefully he's going to be able to prove the doubters wrong. I'm sure he's going to outperform the polls either way. In terms of Oz in the Senate race, it really seems as if he's on track for victory as well. He's winning independents by a lot against Fetterman. One look at Fetterman, you could easily see why.
Right.
I mean, the guy makes Joe Biden look like the best public speaker of all time by comparison. And that's not easy.
He makes him look competent. That is not easy. That's right.
Yeah. And, Oz is somebody that, came from the media. He came from Hollywood. He had, obviously a lot of past liberal stances and struggled to get the base on board early, but they're starting to come on board a little bit more, and we'll see at the end of the day. But it seems like a lot of the undecided voters in polls typically tend to be Republicans, not Democrats. And if they come home and they vote for Oz and Fetterman's stuck there at 48, well, Dr. Oz is going to be the next senator out of the state of Pennsylvania. And if he wins by a decent enough margin, if the polls have a massive error as they did in the primaries, he's going to pull Mastriano with him as well.
Right. Again, too many Republican votes. What on earth is going on with Oregon? I never thought I would see anything like this. The Cook Political Report has officially removed Oregon from lean Democrat, even just calling it lean Democrat is rather than solid Democrat. Lean Democrat to now toss up. Is it Christine Drazen? Is that her name? I believe that's a gubernatorial race.
Yes. She's basically, you could even say, the Glenn Youngkin of Oregon to a certain extent in terms of her ability to, win a state that's that blue without completely acting like Charlie Baker or Phil Scott. And it seems as if she's in very good shape, partially because you do have the unpopularity of the Brown administration. And a lot of people will say, well, she's only winning because there's a third party candidate in the polls that might, lose some support at the end of the day. And while I believe that it's possible the third party support dips, that doesn't mean that, in my opinion, Drazen's going to lose, because in the head-to-head polls we've seen between Kotek and Drazen wins by a wider margin than she would in the three-person race. So it's very possible Republicans pick that one off. It would be huge. The big power move, per se, to get a Republican in a state like Oregon.
Unbelievable. I just never imagined it. That is unbelievable. But I didn't imagine Virginia. I blew it off till mid-October. I didn't think it. Youngkin was down in the polls. I didn't think, and all of a sudden the surge and bang, it's amazing. All right. So what's the latest now? We're filming this on the 5th of October. So what is your Senate map looking like on the 5th of October?
I'm still going with 53 Republican Senate seats as of right now. A lot of people might say that's a bold prediction, but you talk about the fact that it's likely going to be a red wave year, just on the surface. Possibly R+4 is the Gallup party ID historically accurate indicator puts it at. And at that point, you have a lot of toss-up Senate races, either in states that Donald Trump had won previously or is probably going to pick off in 2024 in the case of Nevada, all razor-thin states in 2020. And you see a national environment shift back. You have a lot of incumbents polling in the mid to high 40s, incumbents that are voting with Biden nearly 100% of the time. And it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that you're going to see a lot of flips here, and possibly by a surprising margin in some cases.
Wow, that's awesome. Now you have very and I recommend everybody going to your channel right now, Red Eagle Politics, subscribe, and then check out this video on that you put up on how if Republicans take the Senate, and Rich Barris, by the way, has I think he's predicting 52. So you guys are right on the same ballpark there. But you're making a very bold argument, very fascinating argument, that if the Dems are shut out from the Senate in 2022, they can basically kiss having a majority in the Senate goodbye for the next generation. Can you flesh that out just a bit for us?
Yeah, and this is true. And I mean, for historical comparison, Republicans didn't have the House for around 40 years between the 1950s and 1994. And you look at geography, Republicans are going to get, especially with polarization, with Trump probably going to be on the ballot, you're going to see instant flips in Ohio, and you'll see one in West Virginia and one in Montana. That would be, let's say they get 52 even. this cycle. That would put them at 55. And then you have a lot of other swing seats up for grabs in places like Nevada, which is moving right, Wisconsin, which polls have shown that Baldwin is not as popular as she was. And then you have Pennsylvania. I know Casey's been an institution for a while, but in a presidential year with polarization, you never know. It's possible they, inch towards 60. If they don't get 60, they'll possibly get close to 60, especially if Sinema's primaried out in Arizona by a far left candidate, which is possible. You'll see that one probably flip. And at that point, you're looking, at 2026, even if you give Democrats North Carolina, have them hold Michigan in 2026, if it's going to be like a pendulum shift back. And then you look at 2028 and what's up for grabs there, and just look at the maps for ensuing generations. Even if you give Democrats both seats in Arizona, Georgia, and Texas in the far future, just given trends in the Rust Belt, it's not looking really good for their prospects at ever holding the Senate pretty much ever again.
Wow. And that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. What about the House? What are you predicting there?
For this midterm, I would have to say that it's very possible that we could see a 30 to 40 seat pickup. It really depends on the generic ballot. If you're going to see an R+3, R+4, then we could be talking about, 30 seats or so, which would still be good. But if you do see a, October surprise with the economy, gas prices continue to go up, R+7 is not off the table, especially because a lot of independents and undecided voters, they say that their top issues are the economy, inflation, the border, education. Dobbs v. Jackson isn't even in the top 5, let alone top 10 in a lot of polls. So just looking at it from that perspective, it is possible a bigger wave could be brewing. Time will just have to tell. And at that point, you could be talking about 50 seats. Wow.
And then, Barris was saying, then we break, I guess there's a 247 ceiling. You'll know better than I, but something like that. 247, that's the highest Republicans have ever gotten. He thinks we might be able to break that, getting around 250, 251 or so. It won't take much. I mean, we have such, we'll have almost parity with the Democrats. So
40 seats.
So cool. Yeah.
That's what it would take.
There you go. 40 seats for that. Wow. Awesome. All right. So I see this is good. This is why I like having you here. We all get to breathe a little easier. We're like, all right, this is cool. I've got some objective indicators to help me through my day and all the days going forward to the midterms. But man, I know you're busy. You're chunking out, like chunking out, probably throwing up, but you're churning out almost a video day leading up to it. We'll have all of Red Eagle's platforms below that you can go to and subscribe to. Definitely go to his YouTube channel, go to his Twitter handle. All his social media platforms are all down below for you. Absolutely spot on political and poll analysis every single day throughout the week. So he's absolutely a wonderful resource. Red Eagle, can't thank you enough, man. Let's do it again after the midterms, where I'm expecting you to do a lot of gloating.
Yes, for sure. Thanks for having me.
You bet.